3 months had passed since the battle above Earth. The galaxy was still in chaos. But a new order was slowly emerging from the ashes of the Varan Empire. Captain Yuna stood on the bridge of a new ship. It was called the Unity, and it was the largest vessel ever built by human hands. But it was not just a human ship. Engineers from a dozen species had helped construct it. Workers from freed worlds had contributed materials and labor. It was a symbol of what the galaxy could become. The Free People's Alliance had grown beyond anyone's expectations. Species that had been enslaved for centuries now stood as equals. Planets that had known only suffering were beginning to rebuild. And at the center of it all was Earth, a small blue world that had dared to say no to an empire. Yuna looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the remnants of the Varan Empire were gathering. Reports said they had assembled a new fleet, even larger than the one humanity had destroyed. Another battle was coming. Perhaps many battles, but today was not for war. Today was for peace. The Unity was traveling to the former Varan home world, now called Free VOR by its liberated population. Emperor Kale had been tried for his crimes and sentenced to spend the rest of his life on a prison planet. His empire had collapsed, split into dozens of factions that fought each other more than they fought the Alliance. But the greatest victory was not military. It was political. The species of the galaxy, who had never trusted each other, who had been played against each other by the Varan for centuries, were now working together. They shared technology. They traded resources. They helped each other rebuild, and they looked to humanity for guidance. Yuna did not fully understand why. Humans were new to the galactic stage. They were few in number compared to some of the older species. Their technology, even with Project Phoenix, was not the most advanced, but Commander Bira of the Free People's Alliance had explained it to her during one of their many meetings. "It is not about power," he had said. His species was tall and thin, with blue skin and large, wise eyes. "It is about spirit. When the Varan came to your world, every other species would have surrendered. We know this because we all did surrender long ago. But you did not. You stood up when standing was impossible. You attacked when attacking was madness. And you won." He had placed one of his long hands on her shoulder. "That kind of courage changes things, Captain. It makes others believe that they too can be brave. You did not just defeat an empire. You gave the galaxy hope." Now, as the Unity approached Free VOR, Yuna thought about those words. She had never wanted to be a symbol. She had just wanted to protect her home, her people, her world. But sometimes, she was learning. Protecting one thing meant changing everything. Teho approached her from across the bridge. He looked different now. There was gray in his hair, though he was still young. The war had aged all of them. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the surface," he said. "They are ready for the ceremony." Yuna nodded. "Assemble the delegation. Let us go down." The Unity shuttle descended through the atmosphere of Free VOR. Looking out the window, Yuna could see the scars of the Varan occupation. Ruined cities, burned forests, polluted oceans. It would take generations to heal this world, but there were also signs of hope. New buildings rising from the rubble, green plants pushing through the ash, children playing in the streets for the first time in their lives. The shuttle landed in a great plaza that had once been the site of Varan parades. Now it was filled with representatives from every species in the Alliance. Hundreds of different beings, in hundreds of different shapes and colors, all gathered for one purpose. Yuna walked to the central stage. Behind her came her officers, Taiho, Hana, Minho, and dozens of others who had fought beside her. Around them stood leaders from across the galaxy. An old being with scales and ancient eyes stepped forward. It was Elder Sen, the oldest surviving member of the first species the Varn had conquered. Its voice was weak but clear. "We gather today to mark a new beginning," Elder Sen said. "For 10,000 years, we lived under the shadow of the Varn. We forgot what freedom meant. We forgot how to hope." The elder turned to look at Yuna. Then the humans came. They were young. They were few. They had every reason to surrender. But they did not. They fought. They won. And in winning, they showed us that we could fight too. Elder Sen gestured, and a servant brought forward a simple metal object. It was a key, old and worn, engraved with symbols from 100 different languages. "This is the key of unity," the elder explained. "It was made in secret, passed from species to species, hidden from the Varn for thousands of years. It represents our dream of freedom, our hope for a better future. We have kept it safe, waiting for the day when someone worthy would come to lead us." The elder held out the key to Yuna. "Captain Yuna of Earth, will you accept this responsibility? Will you lead the Free People's Alliance in our struggle for a better galaxy?" Yuna looked at the key. It was heavy with history, with the hopes and dreams of countless beings who had lived and died under Varn rule. She thought about her home in Bizin, about her mother's garden, about the life she had lived before all of this began. That life was gone. She could never go back to being just a ship captain. The galaxy had changed, and she had changed with it. She reached out and took the key. "I accept," she said. Her voice was steady, strong. "Not because I am special. Not because I am better than anyone else. But because we are all in this together. Human and alien. Old and young. Strong and weak. We all want the same thing. A galaxy where our children can live in peace." She turned to face the crowd. Thousands of eyes, in every color imaginable, looked back at her. "The war is not over," Yuna continued. "The Vorans still have fleets. They still have weapons. They will come for us again. But when they do, they will not find slaves waiting to surrender. They will find free beings ready to fight. They will find a galaxy united against tyranny. And they will learn what my people learned on Earth, that freedom is worth any price." The crowd erupted in cheers. Beings who had been enemies for centuries embraced each other. Tears flowed from eyes of every shape. Hope, real hope, filled the air like sunlight. Hana stepped up beside Yuna. "So what happens now, Captain?" Yuna looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the next battle was waiting. More challenges. More sacrifices. More difficult choices, but also more victories. More alliances. More proof that the galaxy could be better than it was. "Now," Yuna said, "we build something worth fighting for." She turned and walked back to the shuttle, her officers following behind. There was work to do. Ships to repair. Alliances to strengthen. Battles to prepare for. But for the first time since this all began, Yuna felt something she had not allowed herself to feel: optimism. Not because the future would be easy. It would not be. But because she was not alone. Because millions of beings across the galaxy were standing up, fighting back, refusing to accept the darkness. The Varn had thought they could conquer Earth with a simple demand for surrender. They had thought humans would bow like every other species before them. They had thought wrong. And now, because of that mistake, everything was different. As the shuttle rose back toward the Unity, Yuna took one last look at Free Vire through the window. A new dawn was breaking over the planet. The first dawn of freedom in 10,000 years. It was beautiful. And it was just the beginning. The Emperor's flagship shook as missile after missile struck its hull. Alarms screamed through the corridors. Fires broke out on multiple decks. Crew members ran in panic, trying to reach escape pods that would never launch in time. Emperor Kale gripped his command chair with his four-fingered hands. His face showed something that had never appeared there before. Fear. Real fear. The fear of someone who realizes they have made a terrible mistake. "Return fire!" he screamed at his weapons officers. "Destroy those human ships." But the weapons were failing. Minho's engineers had targeted the flagship's power distribution systems during the initial assault. The great ship's guns fired slowly, weakly, hitting nothing important. On the Defiance, Yuna watched the enemy flagship burn. Her own ship had taken heavy damage. Smoke filled the bridge. Several crew members were injured, but they were still fighting. "Target the reactor core," she ordered. "One more hit, and we finish this." The Defiance's main cannon charged. It was a weapon that Minho had personally modified, making it 3 times more powerful than standard fleet weapons. The energy built up, glowing bright blue in the barrel. But before Yuna could give the order to fire, something happened that changed everything. A new signal appeared on the tactical display. Then another. Then dozens more. "Captain!" Taiho shouted. Multiple ships emerging from hyperspace. They are not Voran. Yuna's heart stopped for a moment. More enemies? Had the Voran called allies that she did not know about? Then the identification signals came through. The ships were broadcasting on frequencies that humanity had never encountered before. But they were not attacking. They were helping. "This is Commander Bira of the Free People's Alliance," a voice said over the communication channel. It spoke in broken but understandable English. "We have been watching your battle. We have been waiting for someone to stand against the Voran. Today, you have proven that resistance is possible. Today, we join you." The new ships opened fire on the Voran fleet. They were smaller than the human vessels, older and more worn, but there were many of them. Hundreds of ships from a dozen different species, all united by their hatred of the Voran Empire. On occupied planets across the galaxy, other species watched the battle through secret transmissions. They saw the human fleet attacking the invincible Voran. They saw the Voran flagship burning. They saw hope for the first time in generations, and they began to rebel. On a mining world called Keth, workers stopped their machines and attacked their Voran overseers. On the jungle planet Vior 7, prisoners broke free from their camps and took control of the spaceport. On 100 different worlds, the oppressed rose up against their masters, the Voran Empire, which had seemed so powerful just hours ago, was suddenly fighting a war on every front. Emperor Kale received reports from across his domain. Rebellions everywhere. Fleets destroyed. Planets lost. His 4 eyes grew wide with disbelief. "This cannot be happening," he whispered. "We are the Voran. We are the masters of the galaxy." "Not anymore," Yuna's voice said through his communication system. Somehow, her ship's technicians had broken through his command channel. Her face appeared on his personal screen. She was covered in smoke and blood, but her eyes were calm and cold. "Your empire is falling, Kale," Yuna said. "Your fleet is broken. Your subjects are rebelling, and we are coming for you." The Emperor tried to respond, but no words came out. For the first time in his long life, he had nothing to say. The combined human and free people's fleet surrounded the Voran flagship. Escape was impossible. The Emperor's guards prepared for a final stand, but everyone knew it was hopeless. In the space around Earth, the battle was ending. Voran ships that still functioned were surrendering or trying to flee. The ones that fled were hunted down by Hana's fighters and destroyed. The ones that surrendered were captured by human boarding parties. Yuna looked at the tactical display. Green dots everywhere. Almost no red remaining. "We did it," Taiho said quietly. His voice was filled with wonder. "Captain, we actually did it." Yuna did not smile. Too many people had died for her to smile. More than 100 human ships had been destroyed. Thousands of crew members would never go home. The victory had come at a terrible price, but it was still a victory. She stood up from her command chair and walked to the main view screen. Through the damaged window of the bridge, she could see Earth. It was still there. Still blue and green and beautiful. Still home to billions of people who would wake up tomorrow as free beings, not slaves. That was worth any price. Hannah, Una said into her communicator, take your squadrons and secure the Varn flagship. Do not harm the Emperor. We need him alive. Understood, Captain, Hannah replied. There was exhaustion in her voice, but also pride. We are moving in now. Minho's voice came through from engineering. Captain, our reactor is stable, but we need repairs soon. I am doing what I can, but this ship needs a shipyard. We will get you your shipyard, Minho, Una promised. Just keep us flying a little longer. On the flagship, Warren soldiers tried to fight as human boarding teams entered the ship. But they were tired, demoralized, and outnumbered. One by one, they surrendered or were defeated. Hannah led the assault on the bridge personally. She kicked open the heavy door and found Emperor Kale sitting alone on his throne. His guards had fled. His officers had abandoned him. He was just a gray creature in golden armor, waiting for the end. Emperor Kale, Hannah said, pointing her weapon at his chest. You are now a prisoner of humanity and the Free People's Alliance. Do you surrender? The Emperor looked at her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. I surrender, he said. You have one human. Today. But the Varn Empire is vast. Others will come. You have started a war that will last centuries. Hannah smiled. It was not a kind smile. Good. We humans are very good at long wars. She signaled her team to take the Emperor into custody. As they led him away, she contacted Una. Captain, we have the Emperor. The flagship is ours. On the bridge of the Defiance, Una closed her eyes for just a moment. Relief washed over her like a wave. It was done. The first battle was won, but Kale was right. This was just the beginning. More Voron would come. More battles would be fought. The war for the galaxy had only started. Una opened her eyes and looked at her crew. They were battered, exhausted, some of them wounded. But they were alive. And they were proud. All ships, she said into the fleet-wide channel. The battle is over. We have won. Take care of your wounded. Honor your dead. And prepare yourselves, because tomorrow we have work to do. Across the fleet, crews cheered. On Earth below, people who had watched the battle in fear now celebrated in joy. The news spread across the planet. The aliens had been defeated. Humanity had won. And in the deepest reaches of space, on the home world of the Voron Empire, military commanders received word of their defeat. They began to gather their forces, to plan their revenge. The galaxy would never be the same again. The first Voron supply ship exploded in a ball of white fire. Then the second. Then the third. Within minutes, 12 massive vessels were destroyed before the enemy could even turn around. On the bridge of the Defiance, Una watched the battle unfold on the tactical display. Green dots represented human ships. Red dots represented Voron vessels. And slowly, carefully, the green dots were winning. Supply line Alpha is destroyed, Taiho reported. Enemy capital ships in Sector 7 are reporting power failures. Una nodded. Her plan was working. The Voron were so used to easy victories that they had become lazy. They kept their supply ships far behind the battle line, protected only by their massive numbers. They never expected anyone to attack from behind. But humans were not like other species. Humans did not fight fair. Humans fought to win. On the Voron flagship, Emperor Kale stood frozen before his tactical screen. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly. He could not understand what he was seeing. The primitive humans, with their tiny fleet and inferior technology, were actually hurting his forces. How is this possible? He demanded. Where did these ships come from? His officers had no answers. They scrambled to reorganize the fleet, to turn the big warships around to face this new threat. But the human ships were too fast. They struck and retreated, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. Meanwhile, Hana's fighter squadrons continued their assault on the main Vorin battle line. Her pilots were among the best in the human fleet. They flew with skill and courage that amazed even their own commanders. Hana herself led the most dangerous attacks. Her fighter dove between massive Vorin warships, dodging their weapons' fire, targeting their weak points. She had studied every piece of intelligence humanity had about Vorin technology. She knew where to hit them. Squadron 3, target the engine ports on that cruiser, she ordered through her helmet radio. Squadron 5, cover their retreat. Squadron 1, with me. We are going for the command tower. Her small fighter raced toward a Vorin battleship that was 3 kilometers long. The ship's weapons tried to track her, but she was too fast, too unpredictable. She fired her missiles at the exact moment when the ship's shields cycled to a lower power setting. The missiles struck the command tower. Fire erupted from the top of the massive vessel. The battleship began to drift, its command crew dead or dying. Back on the Defiance, Minho was working miracles in the engineering section. The ship's systems were taking damage from the intense combat. Power fluctuations threatened to disable the shields. But Minho and his team kept everything running. Rerouting power from non-essential systems, Minho called out to his crew. Stabilizing shield generators. We need to hold together for just a little longer. He was covered in sweat and grease. His hands were burned from touching hot equipment. But he did not stop working. He could not stop. Too many lives depended on him. On Earth below, people watched the battle in the sky. At first, they could only see distant flashes of light. But as the fighting moved closer, the explosions became visible even in daylight. People gathered on rooftops and in open fields, looking up at the strange lights above their world. What is happening up there? An old woman asked her grandson in the streets of Soledad. The young man held up his tablet. The news says we are fighting back. They say we had a secret fleet. They say a captain named Yuna is leading the attack. The old woman smiled. It was a sad smile, but also a proud one. Then we have not given up. That is good. We should never give up. In space, the battle continued. The Vorin fleet was in chaos. Ships that had lost their supply lines were running out of power. Weapons that had seemed invincible were now failing. Crews that had never faced real resistance were panicking. Emperor Kale watched his empire's greatest fleet fall apart around him. He had conquered 100 worlds. He had destroyed species that resisted him. He had never lost a battle. Until now. Send a message to the home fleet, he ordered his communication officer. Tell them to send reinforcements immediately. Every available ship. The officer tried to send the message, but something was wrong. The communication systems were not working properly. Emperor, the officer said nervously, our long-range communications are being blocked. The humans are jamming our signals. Kale's gray face twisted with anger. These primitive creatures were more clever than he had thought. They had planned for everything. On the Defiance, Yuna received a report from her communication team. Captain, we are successfully jamming all Vorin long-range transmissions. They cannot call for help. Good, Yuna said. But we cannot maintain this forever. How long until our jamming equipment burns out? Maybe 6 hours, the officer replied. After that, they will be able to contact their empire. Yuna looked at the tactical display. Her fleet had destroyed most of the Voron supply ships, but the main battle force was still largely intact. The big warships were slowly turning to face the human fleet. Soon, their superior firepower would come to bear. "We need to end this quickly," she said. "Taiho, what are our options?" Taiho studied the display. "If we concentrate all our forces on the Emperor's flagship, we might be able to destroy it. Without their leader, the Voron fleet will likely retreat or surrender. But that means exposing ourselves to heavy fire," Yuna said. "We will lose ships. We will lose people." "Yes, Captain. But it is our best chance." Yuna was silent for a long moment. She thought about the crews on her ships. Young men and women who had trusted her, who had followed her into battle against impossible odds. Some of them would die if she gave the order to attack the flagship, but if she did not give the order, everyone might die. The Voron would eventually overcome her fleet. They would take revenge on Earth. Billions of innocent people would suffer. There was really only one choice. "All ships," Yuna said into the fleet-wide channel. "This is Captain Yuna. We are going to attack the enemy flagship. I will not lie to you. Many of us will not survive this assault. But if we succeed, we will end this battle. We will save our home. We will show the galaxy that humanity will never surrender." She paused, then continued. "Remember why we fight. Remember your families, your friends, your homes. Remember everything that makes us human. And then follow me into the fire." The human fleet turned as one. 300 ships, large and small, formed into an arrow pointing directly at the Voron Emperor's massive vessel. Hana's fighters cleared a path, destroying any Voron ship that tried to block the advance. Minho's engineering teams kept the shields running, even as they took hit after hit. Taiho called out targeting solutions and enemy positions with perfect precision. And at the front of the formation, leading the charge, was Yuna. The Voron flagship grew larger on the screen. Its weapons opened fire. Human ships exploded around Yuna. 40 ships, 50, 60. The losses were terrible, but the human fleet did not stop. It could not stop, because stopping meant dying, and stopping meant failure. "All ships," Yuna ordered as they closed to final attack range. "Fire everything you have." The night sky above Earth turned to fire as 300 human ships unleashed every weapon they had at the heart of the Voron Empire. The council chamber exploded with noise. Officers shouted. Politicians screamed. Secretary Park's face turned red with anger and fear. "Are you insane?" He yelled at Yuna. "You have just declared war on an empire that spans 1,000 worlds. You have killed us all." General Quan grabbed Yuna's arm. "Captain, what have you done? We have no way to fight them. Our fleet is nothing compared to theirs." Yuna pulled her arm free. She turned to face the room full of terrified leaders. Her expression was calm, almost peaceful. "You are wrong," she said. "We do have a way." The room went quiet again. Everyone stared at her. "What are you talking about?" General Quan demanded. Yuna took a deep breath. "For the past 30 years, Earth has been building something. A secret fleet. Hidden in places the Voron sensors cannot reach. Inside asteroids, beneath the ice of Europa, in the deep mines of the moon." Secretary Park's mouth fell open. "That is impossible. I would know about such a project." "No," Yuna said. "You would not." The project was created by a small group of military leaders who understood that one day something like this would happen. They knew that our public fleet was not enough. They knew we needed a backup plan. A secret weapon. She looked at General Quan. The old general's face had gone pale. "General," Yuna said quietly, "you know what I am talking about. You were one of the founders of Project Phoenix." Every eye in the room turned to General Quan. The old man stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing without making a sound. Finally, he spoke. "How do you know about Phoenix?" "My father was Rear Admiral Sung," Yuna said. "He worked on the project for 20 years. Before he died, he told me everything. He gave me the access codes. He made me promise to use them only if Earth faced total destruction." General Quan sat down heavily in his chair. He suddenly looked very old. "I thought Phoenix was cancelled years ago. The funding disappeared. The records were deleted." "The records were hidden," Yuna corrected him. "The funding was moved through secret channels. The work continued. It always continued." She walked to a different console and entered a long series of numbers and letters. The main screen flickered. Then it showed something that made everyone in the room gasp. Ships. Hundreds of ships. They were sleek and angular, their hulls painted black to blend with the darkness of space. They were hidden inside hollowed-out asteroids, covered by the ice of distant moons, buried in underground hangars on Mars. 312 ships, Yuna said. Built over 30 years. Equipped with weapons that our enemies have never seen. Engines that can outrun anything in the Varan fleet. Shields based on technology we recovered from a crashed alien vessel 50 years ago. Secretary Park could not speak. His entire worldview had just shattered. A secret military project, hidden from the civilian government for 3 decades. It was a betrayal of everything he believed about democracy and transparency. But at this moment, looking at the Varan fleet above Earth, he could not bring himself to be angry. Yuna turned to face the room. "I need volunteers. Crews to fly these ships. Officers to lead the attack. Soldiers who are willing to fight, even if the odds seem impossible." A young officer in the back stood up. It was Minho, a brilliant engineer who had designed some of the most advanced systems in the public fleet. He was only 30 years old, with a thin face and quick eyes. "I will come," he said. "Tell me what you need." Another officer stood. Then another. One by one, men and women rose from their seats. Some were old, some were young. Some were scared, some were determined. But all of them chose to fight. Within an hour, Yuna had assembled a command team. Minho would serve as chief engineer. Hana, a fierce woman with years of combat experience, would lead the fighter squadrons. Taiho would remain as tactical officer. Dozens of other officers volunteered for various positions. They took shuttles up to a hidden, stationed inside a large asteroid near the moon. When they arrived, Yuna saw the secret fleet for the first time with her own eyes. The ships were beautiful. They were the product of human genius, built by workers who would never receive public recognition, funded by credits that did not officially exist. The flagship was called the Defiance. It was smaller than the Varan Emperor's vessel, but it was fast, heavily armed, and equipped with systems that the aliens could not imagine. Yuna stood on the bridge of the Defiance. Around her, crew members rushed to prepare for launch. Minho's voice came through the communication system. "Captain, all ships report ready. Weapons are charged. Engines are hot. We are waiting for your orders." Yuna looked at the tactical display. It showed the Varan fleet, still hovering above Earth. The aliens had not moved since her declaration. They were waiting, perhaps confused, perhaps amused. They did not believe that a primitive species like humans could actually pose a threat. That was their first mistake. "All ships," Yuna said into the fleet-wide channel. "This is Captain Yuna. You all know why we are here. You all know what we face. The Varan think we are weak. They think we will break. They think we will surrender." She paused. Around her, the bridge crew listened in silence. "They are wrong," Yuna continued. "Humans do not break. We bend, we adapt, we endure, and when we are pushed to the edge, we push back. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten our home. On every ship in the fleet, crew members cheered. The sound echoed through the asteroids and moons where the Phoenix fleet had hidden for so many years. Tejo brought up a tactical map on the main screen. Captain, the Vaughn fleet is arranged in a standard defensive formation. Their supply ships are positioned behind the main battle line. If we can cut their supply lines, their largest ships will lose power within hours. Yuna nodded. That is exactly what we will do. But first, we need to make them think we are attacking the main fleet. Commander Hannah, are your fighter squadrons ready? Hannah's face appeared on a side screen. She was sitting in the cockpit of her fighter, helmet already on, eyes burning with anticipation. Ready and eager, Captain. Just give the word. The word is given, Yuna said. Launch all fighters. Create chaos. Make them look at you. And when their eyes are on your squadrons, we will strike their supply ships from behind. The hangar doors of 30 ships opened simultaneously. Fighters poured out into space like a swarm of angry insects. They were small, fast, and numerous. Each one carried weapons that could damage even the largest foreign vessels. On the Voran flagship, Emperor Kale watched the approaching fighters on his screen. He made a sound that might have been laughter. Pathetic, he said to his officers. They send their smallest ships against us. Destroy them. The Voran weapons opened fire. Space lit up with energy beams and explosions. But the human fighters were not where the Voran expected them to be. They moved in patterns that the alien computers could not predict. They dodged fire that should have destroyed them. They struck back with weapons that cut through Voran shields, like knives through paper dot, and while the Emperor's attention was fixed on the fighters, Yuna's main fleet moved into position behind the supply ships. Now, Yuna ordered. All ships fire. The night sky above Earth lit up with the fire of a secret fleet that should not exist. And for the first time in the history of the Voran Empire, their enemies had drawn first blood. The sky above Seoul turned dark at noon. It was not clouds. It was not an eclipse. It was something far worse. Massive ships, each one bigger than any mountain on Earth, blocked the sun. They came from deep space, and they came with a message. Captain Yuna stood on the bridge of the Starship Horizon. She was 34 years old, with short black hair and calm eyes that never showed fear. She had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 12 years. She had fought pirates near Mars. She had protected mining ships in the asteroid belt. But she had never seen anything like this. How many ships? She asked. Lieutenant Taiho checked his screen. He was young, only 26, but he was the best tactical officer in the fleet. His fingers moved fast across the controls. 347 warships, he said. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly. The largest one is 12 kilometers long. Yuna said nothing. She just looked at the main screen. The alien fleet hung in space like a wall of metal and death. Earth's entire defense fleet was only 82 ships. They were small. They were old. They had no chance. The communication officer, a woman named Ji-won, suddenly looked up. Captain, we are receiving a transmission. It is coming from the lead ship. Put it on screen, Yuna ordered. The screen flickered. Then a face appeared. It was not human. The creature had gray skin, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and no visible nose. Its mouth was wide and filled with small, sharp teeth. It wore golden armor covered in symbols that Yuna did not recognize. I am Emperor Kale of the Voran Empire, the creature said. Its voice was deep and cold, like rocks grinding together. Your planet is now property of the Empire. You will surrender all weapons. You will submit to our rule. You will serve us. This is not a request. This is an order. The transmission ended. The screen went black. Yun stood very still. Around her, the bridge crew was silent. She could feel their fear. She could almost taste it in the recycled air of the ship. On Earth below, panic was already spreading. News channels showed the alien fleet. People ran through the streets. Governments called emergency meetings. World leaders argued and shouted and blamed each other for being unprepared. Within an hour, Yuna received orders to return to Earth. All ship captains were called to an emergency council at the United Earth Government headquarters in Geneva. She left Taiho in command of the Horizon and took a shuttle down to the surface. The council chamber was crowded. Military officers, politicians, scientists, and diplomats all talked at once. Fear filled the room like smoke. Yuna found a seat near the back and watched. The Secretary General, an old man named Park, stood at the front. His face was pale, and his hands trembled as he held his notes. "We have calculated our options," Secretary Park said. "The Varan fleet has technology far beyond ours. Their weapons can destroy our cities in minutes. Their shields can block anything we have. If we fight, we will lose. Billions will die." A general stood up. His name was Quan, and he was the commander of the entire Earth Defense Fleet. He was 60 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. "Then, what do you suggest?" General Quan asked. "Surrender? Become slaves?" "Survival," Secretary Park replied. "We survive. We wait. We learn. Perhaps in 100 years, our descendants can fight back. But today, we cannot win." The room erupted in arguments. Some agreed with the secretary. Others called him a coward. A few demanded that Earth fight, even if it meant death. But most sat in silence, their faces showing only despair. Yuna listened to all of it. She heard the fear in their voices. She saw the defeat in their eyes. These were the leaders of Earth, and they had already given up. She thought about her home. She thought about the small town near Bizin where she grew up. She thought about her mother, who still lived there, tending a small garden of vegetables. She thought about the children playing in the streets, the old men fishing by the sea, the couples walking hand in hand through the markets. She thought about what would happen to all of them under Varan rule. The alien's words echoed in her mind. "You will serve us." Something changed inside Yuna at that moment. She felt a fire ignite in her chest. It was not anger, not exactly. It was something deeper. It was the refusal to accept defeat. It was the human spirit that had built cities from mud, crossed oceans on wooden boats, and reached for the stars with rockets made of dreams and determination. She stood up. The room did not notice at first. The arguments continued. But Yuna walked forward, pushing past officers and officials, until she reached the front of the chamber. "Captain, what are you doing?" General Quan demanded. Yuna did not answer him. She walked to the communication console and pressed a button. A technician tried to stop her, but she pushed him aside with surprising strength. "What is she doing?" Secretary Park shouted. "Stop her!" But it was too late. The console lit up. A connection opened to the Varan flagship. The same gray face appeared on the giant screen at the front of the chamber. Emperor Kale looked down at the humans with his 4 cold eyes. "You have decided to surrender?" the Emperor asked. His voice carried a note of bored amusement. He had done this many times before. He had conquered hundreds of worlds. Earth was just another planet to add to his collection. Yun looked up at the screen. She was small compared to the massive image of the alien emperor. But she stood straight, her shoulders back, her eyes fixed on his. "No," she said. Her voice was clear and strong. It echoed through the silent chamber. "We will not surrender." Emperor Kale's 4 eyes narrowed. "Then you choose death." "No," Yuna said again. A small smile appeared on her lips. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had made a decision that would change everything. "We will attack." The room went completely silent. Every person stared at Yuna like she had gone mad. Emperor Kale's gray face showed something that might have been confusion. No species had ever responded this way. No conquered world had ever said those words. "You will attack?" the Emperor repeated slowly. "Yes," Yuna said. "And we will win." She ended the transmission. The screen went dark. And in that moment, everything changed.